morning everyone. We are now on to the second day of Transcend Your World workshop. And in this segment, I'd like to talk to you about your relationship with abundance. There will be teaching on abundance in its detail later. However, what I'd like to do now is talk to you about your relationship with abundance. Now, everything in nature, in terms of movement, runs in circles. So a circle, two-dimensional is this, but really in the universe, everything is what's called helical, because everything moves in relationship to something else. What happens is that nothing is ever static. So when you have two things, and one body moves around the other, so for example, as I explained before, if the Earth rotates around the Sun, but the Sun's moving, so then the Earth has to follow in a helical orbit. A helical orbit is a three-dimensional orbit, whereby it's a circle into another circle, which ends up being elliptical because it's not a perfect circle. Sounds a bit complex. What it means is this: you can never perfectly map on a two-dimensional scale your relationship with abundance because of this. And have you noticed relationships with people are never static? There's always changes in these relationships that defy logic. And the reason why they defy logic is that our paradigm in looking at everything is two-dimensional. So we start here, we think go there and maybe do this. But it's all on a page. But what happens if the direction does this in 3D? Our brains are not programmed to take that into account. So this is why I was talking yesterday about something called a holographic perspective. When you take a holographic perspective, it is looking at something from many dimensions. Many dimensions means different positions and states. So a table is two dimensions. We live in a three-dimensional world of space. Then there's the fourth dimension of time. When you go into the universe has multiple dimensions, which we are not aware of. And it's hard to describe from our paradigm. If you are a little card living on a table and just moving on the table, and all your world is the two dimensions of the table. If you are on the table here, there's no way you can perceive this. So when this comes into your world, all you see as it goes through the two dimensions is just the outline of this as it goes through. Why am I explaining this? Because I'm seeking to take your consciousness and paradigm out of the two dimensions that you are programmed to look at your relationship with abundance. I'll say it again. Your consciousness is programmed to look at abundance in your life, money, etc., in two dimensions. It either comes in or it doesn't. You either have $1,000 in your bank or you don't. But there are many other forces in play with that. And the forces in play mean that everything moves in relationship to each other. Let me just take a digression and talk to you about the laws of physics with attraction. And then you can see what I'm saying when I'm explaining your relationship with abundance and how it is a helical orbit in terms of its relationship. So, the law of attraction says this, and this is man's view on the law of attraction. All you have to do to attract something into your world is to give it lots of energy, intention, consciousness, etc. So what you do is you visualize it, you set your intention, you meditate about it, you put it on your vision board, you have affirmation statements on it, you give it lots of energy, you have a picture of what you want on your computer screen and on your fridge, etc. And you give it lots of attention. And when you do that, it'll turn up magically in your life. And it's law of attraction, in a nutshell. And millions of people have found it doesn't quite work. The reason why it doesn't quite work is because it doesn't follow the laws of physics. So here's an example. One body, another body. Physics 101, for attraction to happen, there has to be a charge on both bodies. So, young guy has this 10 out of 10 charge for his perfect partner. He's got his list, he's got his photo, he's got his affirmations, he's doing everything that the law of attraction tells him to do. Vision board, meditation, picture, consciousness, you know, and he's also time sensitive. She is going to come into my world in this week. Well, what if she has zero charge and attraction for him? Is it going to happen? I think not. But you see, we don't think about these things like that. That is one rule. Now, another rule, the law of physics, is if there's an obstacle blocking your way, is it going to happen? It's not. What about obstacles? There are internal obstacles, external obstacles. So external obstacles are your job might prevent you from getting closer. Something might get in the road, etc. So that's external obstacle. This is the second factor. The third factor is the distance. One of the laws of physics is the inverse square law, which says this. If you double the distance between two bodies, you have to quadruple the charge on both to maintain the same force. This is why parking spaces manifestation works, because it's close. And why does that work? Other things don't work because of this distance. If you want to manifest lotto, and yesterday there was a $22 million prize on lotto, well, how far away are you from that? Well, it's $22 million minus what's in your bank. It's how far you are away from it. And so that's why the law of attraction there hardly works, because the distance is so vast. And nobody does anything about these other factors. That's factor 3. Factor 4 is that at any point in time, there are charges, there are forces on both bodies. So this body has all sorts of forces on it, and the sum of all those forces will be taking it in a particular direction. Same with this. So what if the forces on this body and forces of this body are taking them in this direction? Then the distance between the two are going to increase some more. And then the fifth factor is at any point in time and space, they are in movement in relative to the other. So it's never the same. And so your relationship with abundance requires you to understand some of the laws of physics in the universe in terms of how it operates. And the work we're doing yesterday is approaching things at 2 levels. So we have a world of duality and polarity. Consequently, if you want to move towards abundance, then it is like you're in a boat, it's fueling your boat up, setting direction, starting the motor and energizing the momentum in that direction. So there is activity to prepare, and there's also activity to create the momentum and motion. Then on the other side, you have to remove the anchors. Because if you don't pull up the anchors, remove the anchors, the boat's not going to move. Or if it does move, you're going to break something if you have enough force going forward. So that's why we're working on both angles there. And the purpose for this little segment is for you to appreciate that it's not a simple switch in terms of how it works, like the way you flick a light on and off. So abundance cannot be switched on and off. You cannot do one thing and then it turns up. Abundance is a movement of yourself in relationship to love. I'll say it again. Abundance is a movement of yourself in relationship to love. So, another way of looking at it is that the voids of love in your life will either prevent you from moving into abundance, or stop you at a particular time, or deviate you from your pathway towards that. A principle of the universe is this: you will always get whatever is required and meant for your highest good at the time. You will always get what is required for your highest good at the time. So, what is for your highest good at the time is directly dependent on you in terms of where you are at in your evolution. Consequently, to have more abundance in your life, if you are not evolving and moving in your consciousness and evolution, but you are staying in a particular area. In other words, 1 year after another, life is very much the same, then abundance is not going to turn up in your life in increasing measure. Now, the principle of the universe. So let's look at the cycle of relationships. Okay? The cycle of relationship starts at the beginning. And in the beginning, there is what's called perfection. And when you are born, you come into this world completely raw, completely with nothing. And a baby coming into this world basically has everything. You have, when you come into this world, complete, total abundance. Beautiful, innocent, carefree, etc. Then you go through the cycle of experiences. And the cycle of experiences will get you to a particular place. Note that it's not a straight line. And the movement from here to here is designed for you to have something called experiences. And every negative experience is a gift. It is a gift because it shows you contrast and it gives you an opportunity to grow in love. And so abundance, love, gift, consciousness, growth, evolution, all those things are ubiquitous and part of each other. You cannot separate them. The problem with the human psyche is that we want to separate these things. And when we want to separate these things and put them in a box, and then work on that box and expect everything to turn up, it doesn't quite work like that. Our man-made world works like that, but the universe doesn't function like that. For example, You want to build a motor car? It is a box. You have it on a drawing board. You go get the materials. You build them in a factory. You put it all together. You drive on the road. It's in a box. However, can a motor car travel to Mars? It cannot. Can a motor car venture into the next galaxy? It cannot. And so, when you want abundance to come into your life, you are really invoking the dynamics, the blessings, the love of Source. So for you to invoke the blessings and dynamics of Source, you have to switch out of the box and into the universe. To switch out of the box in the universe, you have to get out of all the paradigms of your head that we've been programmed with, that we're used to, that we live in, etc. I can share with you from personal experience that you can traverse this world, and when you go and function this world in the third level I described yesterday, do you remember the 3 levels? People drive through the world, in the motor car, everything else, in their life, in their job, going from A to B, etc. And they're limited. Or they can flow through life where they know the rules of the game, they have more power, they have businesses, they've got plenty of money to do things, but they're still restricted by the rules and dimensions of the world, and when something comes in their way, they have to go around it. And the third level is to float through life, where you fulfill love in oneness with awareness that's transcending. And when you go through life at that level, you are really basically living like the masters and the avatars who were in the world but not of the world. And they were just pilgrims here to bring love and light in where they go. And what happens is that they're completely independent of all the drama that goes on down here, which gives them the capacity to be fully connected with the divine and allow the divine to come in and express itself through them. So, you start with perfection, you go through life, and the area where you have the greatest degree of movement away from abundance is your family of origin. So as you grow up as a child, your family of origin and all the stuff that you experience through there, which when you look at it from a mental construct, it's negative. You've had limited beliefs imprinted into you, you've been told you're no good, you haven't been affirmed to who you are, etc. You've had an, inverted commas, absent father, and his absence in your life, in whatever form it was, is actually his greatest gift to you, and he did what he only knew how and best. All these things separate you from this perfection of your relationship with abundance. And what this does here is put a energy or a seed or a void in you. And whatever void you have here is actually container. A container that you can fill through your life and evolution going through. And this container gives you the right to transcend all this. And the cycle that we go across here is called raw love. And what does raw love mean? Is the reality the reality, actualization of your world in love. That's what raw love means. And the definition of raw love is love going out from itself, away from itself, to its opposite of itself, in terms of darkness, everything else, so that to know itself, and when it maintains its purity in its opposite, as it journeys back, just like the pendulum swings one way and another, and life's like a pendulum, it swings one way and another. When it comes back to itself, it magnifies and intensifies and packs the density of that love. So you come out here, this creates a void in you. That void is a container that allows you to pack and magnify the density of love as you move back. Then as you move back from here to here, abundance in your life magnifies and intensifies. And today, what I'd like to get across to all of you good people is how you get from here back to here. And to get from here back to here is a holistic approach in your life. So it's not just doing things, it's being, doing, and having all these things then start to work together synchronistically in a holographic way. I'll say it again. It's about being. From being, you are doing. Then the doing allows all the things that you are doing to knit together and connect synchronistically so that your life then holistically shifts. Big mouthful, and it's a little difficult to wrap your head around. However, over time, as you look at all this, you'll get it. So then what ends up happening is that you then move along, and then you end up in this particular place. Of major lack. And you end up in this place furthest away. Now, this place, the furthest away from this perfection, varies with people. This is the ultimate stuck zone of everyone's life. This is the bottom. And everyone goes through this particular cycle. You get to this particular place. When you're down here, many people decide that life's too hard and they check out. But coming down here, when you look through the annals of history and the stories of great people, they've all traversed down here. And they found that this has been their finest hour in their darkest moment. Famous speech, Winston Churchill, in the heights of the Battle of Britain, down here. His famous speech to the people, in the deepest, darkest time of the greatest threat of the nation, he proclaimed to his people that this is the finest hour. Because you can, from here, turn or burn, turn or get buried. The issue with life is this. If you choose to stay in this for whatever reason, which is actually okay because there's no judgment in all this. And the reason why there's no judgment in all this is whatever direction you go on is perfect for who you are, where you are, and your own personal evolution. However, the reason why all of you are here is because you're not meant to be stuck here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to me. So, from here, what do? You then get this aha. You get this enlightenment. You get the lesson necessary. You get the awakening. You get the pieces necessary for the movement back. happens here? Well, from here to here, it is not just a list. It is an awakening of your consciousness to your highest potential. And as there's an awakening of your consciousness to your highest potential, then you will invariably have things change in your life. So here are some indicators of things changing in your life. The job you don't like, that you're stuck in because you, inverted commas, don't have any other options, then suddenly gets put in a different context. The moment you have the consciousness of your job you don't like or what you are doing is limiting me and I don't have any option, you have created a prison in your mind for yourself. And so to shift out of it, you then put it in a smaller box, not a bigger box that consumes your life. The smaller box is that this is where I am right now. It is a gift because it allows me to do da-da-da-da-da. And we don't usually look at things like that. That everything is a gift. So the job that you don't like is a gift because it allows you to do a number of things. The brain is programmed to look at the negative, but not the positive. That's why when there's a storm, we only see the storm clouds. We don't see the silver lining around the clouds. And when it comes to a rainbow after the storm, you actually have to look up to see it. Because if you look at the devastation of the storm around, you're not going to see the rainbow. So down here, once you're down here, you then have the option. Is this all there is to it? Are you stuck? Or is this the best place for you to be? The reason why this is the best place for you to be is because when you look at raw love, it goes out to here. And when you switch on here, love and light, and then start moving back, you will note a big change in your world. And back to here. And so this is the cycle of relationships. And this pattern works in everything. You can look at your relationship with your significant other in this context. You can look at your relationship with money. You can look at relationship with abundance in this context. We're going to look at lack in more detail later. And we'll actually do a quantum mapping of lack as a group. See what comes up. Do you remember the one we did on highest purpose yesterday? Wasn't that superb in terms of what came up with respect to its definition? So, what does this all mean with abundance? What this means with abundance is this. You can have abundance in your life as long as you do 3 things. Number 1, switch from a limited worldview of your life to a universal divine view. You write that down, number 1. And it's all about perspective. And just within this, it's not one thing that you do to switch your views, it's many little things. Many little things. And the many little things in switching is like going out. And instead of just walking through in your head, you just stop. Let the sun's rays bask you for a minute. You tune in to the birds and go, How wonderful is that? You then wake up, and the significant people in your life, you pause to just look at them and reflect on how much love they give you and you give them. So it's a lot of little things like this that make the difference. And gratitude in here is the most powerful vehicle to help you switch your views. So that's one, switching your views. Number two, practice releasing baggage. Any baggage you carry with you will hold you down, or weigh you down, or cause you to be stuck. And baggage is attachment, judgment, expectations. If you carry an issue with someone, it is because judgment has kicked in. So-and-so did this to me. Expectation, they didn't treat me the way I wanted to. Attachment, I want them to fix it, to be sorry, to redeem themselves to me, according to my requirements. When that happens, you got baggage. And then it's your stuff, not their stuff. So that's to release baggage. And the third thing is this. Very simple. Move towards your highest purpose. How do you move towards your highest purpose? Well, you simply do this. Increase your service to others. That's what you do. In my life, I have complete freedom and choice. I can spend an entire month lying on the beach in Maui, doing everything I need to do from there. I can do that anytime I want to. However, I choose to do this. I choose to do this to give up my time with no expectations of anything, because I am actualizing this. And as a result, abundance comes to me in increasing measure. So these are the 3 steps for you to do all this. And then once you get the principles of this, and you learn some tools in terms of this, this is the biggest area that's like a black box. No one can wave a magic wand on you and just clear all your anchors at the unconscious level. Because when you go into this, there are forces and areas involved there that are not so simple. Sen and I do Mind, Body, Spirit expos in the big cities. It staggers me all the time. When I go to these expos, the queues of people waiting for psychic readings. Because people, number one, want to know the future so that they can control what's coming and know in anticipation, or if there's an opportunity coming, they want to know in advance so they can prepare to make the most of it. The second thing is, they want a quick fix to their inverted commas problems. The third thing is, they want to know why so-and-so is doing this to me. I can't work it out. They're the three reasons why people want readings, etc. And all those three readings, all those three reasons, is like putting the responsibility on self, on all this stuff outside you. So, what does this all mean? Very simple. Spend some time loving yourself. Spend some time working on yourself. Spend some time growing yourself. Let me say it again. Spend some time loving yourself. Spend some time working on yourself. Spend some time growing yourself. So the bottom line with all this is this. How much time do you spend on yourself? Because if you don't spend time on yourself, you're not going to be able to shift these things. If you don't spend time on yourself, how can you change your relationship with abundance? Because if your relationship with abundance is somewhere around here, if you don't spend time with yourself, you're not going to be able to move it back up. The amazing thing is, you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours and hours on yourself doing this stuff. All you have to do is just set aside a small amount of time for yourself. 1 hour a day is good. If you can't spend an hour a day, 15 minutes is good. But most of us, in our busyness of our lives, hardly spend any minutes on ourselves with all this stuff.
So,
yes.
What you're saying here, Richard, is reflection. Is this what you're defining? Like, time on yourself is like...
Good question, good question.
Yeah.
Time with yourself is this. What are you doing to nurture yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What nurtures you? Is it a massage? Is it going to a movie? Mm-hmm. Is it going for a dance? Is it going for a walk on the beach? Mm-hmm. Is it doing something with your significant other? What is it that nurtures you? What do you enjoy doing? Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, spending time in reflection is very critical, because you cannot get into your inner world until you do that. Which is why meditation is one of the 5 steps to transcend your world. And meditation is simply you sitting in stillness and silence and going inside. Last night I didn't get to sleep as early as I intended, because I got inspired to, after yesterday's workshop, to create a mind map on inner guidance. And I've got that, which I'm going to run through as a teaching, inner guidance. And the first word on the first branch that came up on this map on inner guidance is this word called introspection. Introspection is going within and having an inspection, a view and a review of what's inside. That's what introspection means. And it is about looking inside and connecting all the bits and parts, etc. That's introspection. So spending time with yourself is number one, nurturing yourself. Number two, spending time in meditation, doing introspection. Number three, do some learning. Because the knowledge that you have right now is not adequate for you to do the shifts. Because if it was, and you knew what you needed to know, you wouldn't be where you are. So, knowledge is the beginning of power. And when you are in lack, L-A-C-K, lack means love, allowing confusion in your knowledge. You are where you do not want to be because there is confusion in your knowledge. So, learning, having some knowledge is important. That's why this weekend I'm giving you enormous amount of knowledge, wisdom, insights from a different perspective that is useful. Mind mapping is a fantastic tool for knowledge and for clarity. And when you have knowledge, you have to put the knowledge in context with everything else. So let me sum up all this. And would it surprise you if I told you this was completely unprepared? So this is about the helical cycle of your relationship with abundance. Money is just an outcome of that. And so it starts with perfection when you're born. You move away from that as a result of your experiences with your family of origin, and also whatever you bring in from past lives imprinted in your DNA. And then from here, you grow into your adult life carrying all this stuff, which takes you even further away from the perfection of full abundance when you first came into this world. And you end up in the opposite place, far away. And then there's plenty of lack in your life as a result of that. Then from here, you basically have two choices, not three. The two choices are to float around and stay here or move back. So you either move towards or away. And everything, absolutely everything in life in this universe can be summed up from one perspective only. At the highest level, there is only one perspective. Okay, one perspective is this: everything, absolutely everything, is movement because the universe moves. So everything is movement away from love or towards love. Everything that absolutely happens to you can be summed up at the highest level as a movement away from love or movement towards love. So, for you to have more abundance in your life requires you to align the whole dynamics of all the areas of your life so that they all move towards love.
So it's a choice that we're talking about, choice.
It is.
At that moment of choosing.
That is correct.
What do you want to do? Do you want to move further away or do you want to go towards?
Yes, that's correct. It's about a choice. Now, since you brought up that very important point on choice, let me make a distinction with choice. And the distinction I'd like to make with choice is what you are empowered to choose and what you are imprisoned in terms of choice. Because we do not have complete freedom of choice. Let me explain what I mean. When you're in prison cell, you can choose where within that cell you can walk, but you can't choose to go out of that cell. And so the mind locks you into mental cells. So you have the ability to choose what to do within that particular area, but you cannot go out because your mind's locked you in. For example, many people are in a situation. They can choose to go by McDonald's or they can choose to go to a restaurant. But they can't choose to fly to Paris and go and dine, you know, in an exquisite 5-star hotel where the meal is like $2,000 a meal. They don't have the option to do that.
Not today anyway.
Correct. But there's the point in terms of choice. There are limitations to your choice. You do not have complete freedom. So then what you do is this. The freedom you have in your choice is directly related to the paradigms and the boundaries you have in your mental consciousness. And so working on them. And part of it is your thinking and language. Rather than I can't do this, ask the question, how can I? I never ask the question, why can't I do this? I always ask the question, how can I do this? And when people say to me, you can only do this or, so it's either A or B. I don't ask the question, which one's better for me, A or B? I ask the question, how can I have both? So the first step in choices is to switch your thinking. And the secret to life is asking better questions. And on this point, there is only one distinction that separates the great masters from the average people. Do you know what it is? There's only one distinction that separates the great masters from the average people. And that is, they're simply better observers of the world than the average people, and consequently ask better questions. All the great inventors of the world, all they do is look at something and ask better questions. When they ask better questions, they end up getting the right question. And voila, something magical happens. So, this is the way it works. Now I'll just pause for a moment because I found myself covering enormous amount of ground, and this whole dissertation is designed to give you the perspective that abundance isn't a two-dimensional thing, that I don't have any, I want more, and where's the list of things I need to do to make it happen? That's a two-dimensional view. And you go to courses, and that's what they want to dish out to you, because you are paying for the course, and this is what you are expecting at a subconscious level, because you are programmed to think in a two-dimensional view. You want to change your life? You want to be empowered? You want all these things? Well, here are all the tools, and you just do 1, 2, 3, 4, follow these 10 steps, follow these 5 steps, follow these 3 steps, and everything will be fine and dandy. Life doesn't work like that, because our universe is a dynamic, multi-dimensional, holographic organism that moves. So when you get that, and you align your thinking and perspective on that, makes a difference. And so when you do these 3 things, you will start to do that. The worldview, universal view. So how do you switch from a worldview to universal view? Well, what's the universe? Do some study on astronomy. Where are you in terms of your spiritual consciousness of the universe? Everybody's at a particular level. Where are you? How can you expand that? Maybe I'll do a little segment later on how to measure where you are on your spiritual journey. Will that be good?
Yeah, very good.
Okay, I'll do that later.
Richard, could I just ask a question?
Yes.
So, when you say everybody goes through that circle of perfection, like in the back, and then it's a matter of perception of whether you're going to go back to the perception within your mind, or you're going to stay where you are and stuck. And you said every person does it. People who are born into wealth and have really known nothing else but abundance with wealth and their needs being met, they come to that point and their lack of abundance is probably in the way of maybe what they feel is respect, love, power, rather than the actual dollars. Is that what you're getting at? So that at some point they come to a point where they feel they are lacking in abundance in one area of their life, but not necessarily money.
Let's define abundance. Okay, what is abundance? Abundance is the awareness of your being in unity with natural destiny actualizing now in conscious experience. Where is money and wealth and material things in that definition of abundance? The awareness of your being in unity with natural destiny actualizing now in conscious experience. That is the true definition of abundance. Within that definition of abundance, where is their material wealth? Where is the ability to do anything you want in this world and have plenty of money and power and empowerment, etc.? And so people born in amazing wealth and so on, this is part of their life journey and incarnation, to experience all these things, because they may have had poverty in the past life and it's time for them to experience contrast, etc. But it doesn't mean that they will experience love in its fullness, because the richest people on this planet are the most unhappy. They do not have joy and freedom and innocence. They lack those things for the vast majority of them. Then, do they experience joy, happiness, freedom? Yeah, momentarily. They can pay for a weekend in the most exotic island and go, wow, this is wonderful. Look at all these experiences, etc. Have the most wonderful fine dining and be waited upon hand and foot. Sian and I had a taste of that when we went to Bali in last year, 2013. We went and stayed in this place called the Ayana Resort. And there were private villas on the cliff face with ocean views. And these private villas are $1,200 US a night. Like we're talking about 5-star, exquisite, beautiful views, your own private garden and grass overlooking the water. You've got your gazebo with a plunge pool next to it, and 24/7 butler service with a phone, right, whereby you are expected to call a butler for every one of your whims. Come and make me a cup of tea, bring me a towel, all that. They even unpack all your gear professionally, and they're trained in London, unpack all your gear into your wardrobe and everything else, and then when you're ready to go, they pack it all for you professionally in your bag, better than what you could ever do. $1,200 a night. And we were there a few nights, and then, we got an upgrade for about $350 for one of those, and we thought, oh, got to indulge and see what it's like. At the time, beautiful, wonderful. But when you live like that, for several days, the glamour and gloss of that tends to go. It's just like buying a, beautiful exotic car. You enjoy and you love it for the first week or month, whatever, then after that, it just becomes transport. So this is what happens with wealth. You can have a super luxury mega billion-dollar yacht. It's wonderful, but after a while it's just, a yacht that's super luxury gets you from A to B. What it doesn't do is fulfill the depth of your soul to its fullness, running over. That's what those things do not do.
How do you give that to people in poverty when their children are dying and hungry and ill and diseased?
Very good question. Very good question. Now, what is your perspective on people in poverty who are hungry and dying and diseased in this world? What is your perspective on that? You see? And it's all about perspectives and worldview. First of all, what is death? Is death tragedy? Is death something really bad? Is death evil? Is death the end of the world? Is death the pit that you go into? Or is death destiny evolving in actualizing a transcending hologram? DEATH. What death is the cessation of the physical body that you have. The soul and the spirit does not die. It moves on. And when people are in hunger and poverty, what does that mean? Well, it means that they do not have enough to meet their physical needs. They go through suffering. But the definition of suffering is pain plus attachment. When you have pain and no attachment, there is no suffering. And why do people suffer? They suffer to experience. Do we have compassion for them? Yes, we do. However, tragedy, sorrow, and all these things where your heart goes out for them, whilst it is good for you to feel like that, is it, I'm trying to find the right word.
Isn't it a judgment still?
Well, isn't it? when you look at it like that. So when you transcend judgment, well, let me ask you another question. Okay? How do you think God would look at all the suffering, evil in this world, people that are dying and sick and children maimed, etc.? How would God look upon that?
Wasn't it their choice to take that journey before they're even born?
That could be one thing.
But isn't that the opposite of love? It's a cycle of good and evil. It's a cycle. You've got to go to the furthest part away to get to that.
Now, just on that point, Joe, there are many most highly evolved beings, masters of different dimensions and planets, who choose to incarnate on this planet in the most demeaning of situations to experience poverty, sickness, and tragedy. Why do they do that? Simply for the evolution of where they are. Because when you are a multi-level being up there, you know, 5th dimension, 10th dimension, whatever, and everything in your world is love, light, harmony. When you are an angelic being, you do not have an opportunity to evolve because your consciousness and the energy of everything in your world is perfection. There is no change, there's no contrast. And so many high beings choosing to check into this planet and experience a lot of things. I see personally many babies, many star children, you know, who are incredible lights. And you just tune into their energy and you see, wow, this baby, this young child is this amazing energy of love and consciousness. And they've got parents who are asleep, you know, who do not understand them, causing them pain and making them do things that are inappropriate in our judgment for who they are, because the parents do not know. But it is their choice to go through that. My own son is an amazing light master because I know him. He and I were Tibetan monks in the past lifetime. He has a mother who's completely asleep. It's his choice to come in, to have parents of complete opposite polarity so that he could learn and experience the difference between the two as part of his journey. So then when you ask questions like, what about the children and what about the tragedy in the world, what about the wars and all that? Ask a different question. How does God see it and what is God doing about it? When you look at the world up there, you know, the degradation of the environment, what's happening with chemtrails, with genetically modified crops, the poisoning of our waters, the cutting down of our forests, you know, the desecration of our seas and the fishing of our seas and all that. When you look at that and you look at that from our 3D perspective, we can see that the world's going downhill. And then people will extrapolate. If we keep going like this, humanity will destroy itself. The answer, from that perspective, that's correct, it's true. But then, when you step out and look, Mother Gaia doesn't need any help. Mother Gaia is going through a birthing process. Mother Gaia is a powerful, amazing, living organism that has everything under control. So I used to wake up and think, look at all these problems in the world. What am I doing about it? Well, there are 3 views about that. You can make your contribution, be an activist and do something like that, and a lot of people do. And for them it's right, because it's where they are at. You can look at it and then say, it's too hard, you know. Whatever you do doesn't make any difference at all. Go back to your everyday life. Or you can take a completely different view and say, what is the universe doing about it, and how can I be an instrument of source in terms of facilitating all that? So when someone asks me, what are you doing about all the problems and ills in this world? My answer is very simple. I am working actively on facilitating the shift of this planet from the third to the fifth dimension. That is addressing this problem at the highest level.
It's interesting you say that, Rich. People blame God for a lot of things. And they say, why is God doing this? And God's actually not doing this. It's the people doing this. God is there for your faith, or whatever God is there for, or whatever our beliefs are. And the same with the universe. What's unfolding currently is what is supposed to be happening. What we're going through at the moment is what is supposed to be happening. But it also comes back to choices, and we have people in the world who can do something about the people that are suffering. We have wheat being thrown into the sea because one particular country has got too much wheat, so instead of giving it to the poor, they throw it in the sea. Whereas they could solve the problem by giving it to the people who need it, and they don't do that.
That's exactly correct, and you will see right across the world many, many instances in stories of inequity like that. And these things defy common sense and logic. And you will continue to see that happening. I was part of an organization once that had a goal of making poverty history. While in theory that sounded really good in terms of making poverty history, until you understand the duality and polarity of this world. The duality and polarity of this world is such that as long as you're people who are wealthy, you're going to have people who are poor. In this world, as long as you have love, you're going to have hate and violence. You are not going to eliminate that in a world of duality and polarity. So what do? What you do is do your bit that you are meant to do, which comes back to your highest purpose.
And that's where my question came in about the people who are in poverty and dying and their children. That it's not so much about judgment of that, but where in their estimation that's okay if they're great masters and choosing to do that because they know exactly where they need to go with it. But the ones who aren't, how do they then have any choice if that's all they know?
Good question. Time only exists in our mind. Outside our mind, time does not exist. And that is why we have in our mind a concept of multiple lives and past lives and reincarnations, etc. And so the cycle of a soul that goes out as a spark of consciousness from source, it goes through this cycle and ends up here. If they have no knowledge, no awareness of this particular situation, it may be that in this incarnation, which is only a small part of their journey, that they will not wake up and have any knowledge or recollection, and they will come into this life, go and experience all these things, and simply die. Then when they go to the council of elders and review where their life is and come back again, this experience may be just what they need for their next incarnation. We do not know that.
Richard, isn't there when you're born, isn't there a veil? Isn't there a veil that's passed over you to help you forget your past life so that you can experience the life that you chose to be born into purely? In other words, if you chose to be born into a life of poverty, then that's what you actually experience, so that you don't remember. You might have been an ascending master in the previous life, but when you made that choice to reincarnate into this, onto planet Earth, then you need to forget who you were so that you can truly experience being here on Earth and have that experience that you didn't have as an ascending master. So the veil at birth literally puts that to one side of your previous life, and you only recognise that if you do regression anyway.
That's correct. And for many, many people that is true. And for many, many people also, part of their journey in this incarnation is for at a particular point in time for the veil to be lifted, either completely or in part. And it's all about where they are at in this complete cycle. And the interesting thing is this: roll up. On the USB stick that you've got, there's a whole article on Roll Up. Once you read that and you get the meaning of all that, you will have no questions about these issues.
I had the same questions you had, Regina, and I had the same issue with God. I fought with him for 10 years. I called him all the names under the sun, I can tell you. I'm totally out of it now because I have this amazing understanding now. And I've done that through the stick basically and a lot of other research as well.
And having questions like this and having feelings like this is all good. It's all part of your journey. It's all part of your, response to all these things. I'm going to wind up here, and have I covered this adequately for you? Yes? Okay, any other questions? Excellent. We'll have a break now.
Can I just